What's going on, Evan? Big Jer, back with you again. And today, we're going to be mastering our cue. Okay. I decided to show you, I wanted to keep this as, like I said, Ableton native as possible, because I didn't want you guys to have to go get a bunch of new plugins just to take the course. But I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice if I tried to master this with Ableton plugins. Not that they can't do it, it's just that I tend to use a couple specific plugins to get the sound that I get. They're very common plugins, and I think we should talk about them. So a lot of these things that I'm going to talk about can be replicated inside of Ableton, so you guys could, if you don't have the plugins that I use, you could just use the Ableton version of it. I will say it won't sound as good as what I'm using, but if you can get your hands on what I'm using, great. If not, I'm sure the Ableton stuff will do you good until you can move on a bit. And it really in life it comes down to do you have the right tools? That's half the job. Cool. So the couple plugins that I like to use right on my master channel here is I like to use this Pro L. Okay, that one is amazing. I also like to use Ozone's, Isotopes, Ozone, whatever. I'm going to use 8 because I have it, but, 5, 6, 7, 8, that'll all get you the same kind of, not the same, but, very similar result. And the one other that I think is worth mentioning is the Glue Compressor. And we're actually going to use this as a compressor this time, so we'll set it up. Perfect. So these are the three guys that we're going to be mastering with. Before we get into any of that, I'm going to turn everything off and do a kind of a final level check on everything and see if anything needs to be adjusted. All right, sorry for the little bit of stutters there. I guess with the CPU stuff, it's doing the best my computer can. But like I said, I think it's worth you seeing me mix this and master it in real time. So we'll deal with a little bit of stutters. Okay, great. Perfecto. Great. So I think this is good. I had to turn the orchestra up a little bit. I really kind of enjoy the way everything else is sitting for now. So with everything sitting nice, let's get into the master. Now, I should have had this on from the beginning. For now, all it's really going to be doing is just keeping us at negative 3 dB for the video's sake, and then I'll adjust that later. Cool. So before we get into the master, I want to mention that it's a good practice to give yourself headroom, right? So I know we've got 3 dB here, right? But that's because of the limiter and because of headroom for the video. But we need a good 4 to 6 dB before the master. So on top of this, we would go like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 9. Between -7 and -9 is what we kind of want here. Okay, so I gotta bring everything down. So a good way to do that is just by selecting everything, right? And I could go ahead and just start pulling some volumes down here. They're all going to come down. So I could just play this. There we go. Now we got ourselves some decent headroom. Okay, so remember 4 to 6 dB of headroom before you go into the mix, or I'm sorry, before you go into the master, and that should allow us enough headroom to actually get this thing going. Great. So the first thing that we're going to do is turn on our glue compressor, and we're going to open this up, and we're going to talk about this little EQ section here. So when I turn this on, we're not going to use our sidechain. When I turn this on, this means that anything that I roll off, in this case I'm rolling off because I'm using the low cut, anything that I roll off won't run through the compressor. So great. So maybe I don't want to compress my lows like anything below 100. I could also just double click and write 100 in. Nice. And I'm going to use this as a compressor this time. So I'm going to set the attack to here and the release to here. I'm going to give myself 4:1 ratio. And then I'm going to pull this until I get about 3 dB of reduction, roughly. And remember, yes, you want to do it in a section where it's going to be loudest. Don't want to master in a quiet section, you know? Perfect. So we got about 3 dB of reduction, so we'll make up 3 dB. And you always want to check A/B your thing before you do it and after you do it, you know? Great. I love it. The reason we do this is because the uncompressed sub is nice and open, and then we kind of lightly compress the top and sit it on top of the sub. So we get this kind of rubbery type modern feel. It's great. The next thing we're going to do is move into our Ozone 8. Okay, I'm going to turn that on and open it up. And inside of here, okay, let's figure this out real fast. And we're back. Okay, that's that little, I was going now. So, Ozone. Basically, this is a mastering suite, and there's a bunch of modules that you could choose from, and you line them up here. So we'll start with a little bit of EQ. Now, we're not going to really be, you don't want to do too much crazy EQing on here. Basically, you want to kind of shape your mix, right? So one of the very cool things about Ozone is it's got mid-side mode here. Okay, so we're going to go into mid-side mode, and remember, mid is the mono and side is the sides. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and roll off a bit of the lows. And in this, since we're just kind of controlling our frequencies here, it's okay to use a brick wall. And we could roll off at about 35. It's pretty common practice. There's not too much usable stuff under this, so it's okay. And I'm going to kind of just pull this down a little bit. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my sides, and I'm actually going to roll off a lot more, maybe up to like 150, because you want that low to be kind of focused anyway, mono. And then over here, I can kind of raise my side information a little bit, just give us a bit of a wider, bigger feel, right? And you can turn this off and on right here. All right. So, okay, cool. So again, sorry about that CPU stutter, but what you going to do? And now I'm going to add a little excitement. Okay. Now, excitement, if there was any part of this process that would be quote unquote hard, I would say this would be the one. Only because, it's like salt and pepper, right? You could really ruin your mix with this. So for a while, I would say less is more. Until you really understand this, dial back what you think you should have done. So you get an amount and then you get a mix. So I could add an amount and then I could like mix that amount back in. Okay. I'm also going to do this in mid-side mode because I'm pretty confident doing this. I'm going to turn my oversampling on, and I want to learn the frequencies of this particular track I'm working on. So we have a learn button here. So check this out. Nice. So these are the frequencies that it suggests, or the bands that it suggests, and I'll go with it. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of sub-focus on the mids here. Okay, and maybe a little in this area. Awesome. So you see what I'm doing? I'm giving it in until I can feel it or hear it, and then I pull it away, and then I just kind of tuck it in the background. Okay, sides, I'll go in this area. Very cool. Nice. Just a little bit of excitement. I like that. Now, since I've added a little bit of something, I think it's a good time to add a little bit of compression now. So we've got a bit of multi-band compression here. And again, we're not trying to overcompress this. We're just trying to even these guys out. So I'm going to set it to all mode so I can see all of them at once. I'm going to set it to auto gain. So anything that I reduce will be automatically made up. And I'm going to have it learn the bands. Delightful. And we'll go ahead and just get a little bit of compression here. Nothing more than a dB or so. Good. Just controlling it a bit. Okay. From here, I'm going to add myself an imager. Okay. And this, I'm not going to have it learn the bands. I like it to be above 11K and right around here at about 100. And then I'll find a sweet spot here. Now, what this does is if I pull this down, it makes it more mono. And if I pull it up, it makes it like wider, right? So we're going to shape our entire mix now. So anything below here should be mono. And in this area, we're going to kind of just pull it in a little bit. And then this is going to go kind of like up here, and it's going to be kind of like that. Wicked cool. Now, the last step is going to be the maximizer. Okay, so this is where we're going to get our volume. So it might actually get loud right now. I'm going to turn on true peak limiting, and then I'm going to like make sure that my transient emphasis is back up. Basically what this is, obviously this is going to squash down on anything that goes above the threshold. So this is going to give us back our transient. So like, you know, our epic hits, that kind of thing. So I want to grab about 4 dB of reduction here. I don't want too much more than that. Wicked. And then a cool little trick of the trade, right, is to use a limiter after it and just kind of push it in just a little bit to the limiter after it. It's going to make just a tiny little bit of difference. And yeah, you would obviously turn off the -3 here. You could do that on your own time. I don't want to mess up the video. But this is pretty much my mastering chain. Now, I'll include the full version of this, like the final version. And this is the mastering chain that I used on the final version. So you could listen to that and you could hear that end result. You could tell that I'm kind of glitching out anyway right now. So it's not really worth it on here when, of course, you have it right in your folder to listen to. Well, great, guys. I had a blast making this with you. I had a blast the whole time. And I hope you guys did too. I hope you learned something. All right. Big Jer, and I'll catch you next time, guys. See ya.